Imagine being abandoned by your own family. Consumed by rage and a thirst for revenge, you rise to become the strongest mage in history. But after slaying the legendary Red Dragon, your greatest nemesis, you uncover a heartbreaking truth. She was never your enemy, she was just as lonely as you were. Now fate has given you one chance to rewrite everything. What would you do? That's exactly what happens to the protagonist of our story. So, without further delay, let's dive in. The story begins inside the Resnova family mansion, where Ferda Resnova receives devastating news from his father. His marriage has been arranged with Archduke Valdrova. Every noble knows what that engagement means. Refusing it would result in being disowned, while accepting it would destroy his future. To Ferda, either choice feels like a death sentence. Despite everything, Ferda has always wanted one simple thing: to be accepted by his own family. Life in the Resnova household is miserable. The servants constantly mock him for training despite lacking any talent, calling him weak, sickly, and hopeless. No one ever defends him, yet he quietly endures every insult and continues training each day, believing that hard work will eventually earn his father's approval. Instead, one of his older brothers crushes that hope. He ridicules Ferda's dream of becoming a knight before effortlessly beating him to the ground and treating him as an outcast who never truly belonged in the family. Lying on the ground, Ferda looks toward the mansion and sees his father watching from the window. For a brief moment, he hopes for even the slightest acknowledgement, but his father simply turns away and walks off. In that instant, Ferda realizes his family abandoned him long ago. That night, he enters his father's office and calmly announces that he is leaving the Resnova family forever. His father shows no emotion, accepts his decision without hesitation, and orders him to leave immediately. Moments later, Ferda stands alone outside the mansion gates in the middle of the night. Before the gates close, his father coldly declares that, from this moment on, Ferda is no longer a member of the Resnova family. Years of humiliation, rejection, and loneliness erupt at once. As his body trembles with rage, a crimson magic circle appears beneath his feet, awakening a power no one expected. At the age of 18, Ferda becomes a mage. Even then, he is met with ridicule. The other apprentices laugh at him for awakening so late, claiming he is too old and untalented to ever master magic. Ignoring every insult, Ferda releases an overwhelming surge of mana that terrifies everyone around him. A blood-red magic circle forms as he discovers his unique ability. His magic grows stronger through hatred. The more he despises someone, the greater his mana becomes. Driven by revenge, he unleashes a massive explosion that leaves everyone speechless. Years pass and Ferda's hatred continues fueling his growth. He reaches the 6th circle of magic, becoming powerful enough to return to the Resnova mansion and settle every score. The servants who spent years humiliating him are forced to destroy themselves through his magic. His 2 older brothers become consumed by overwhelming hatred for each other, fighting until they destroy one another. Finally, Ferda stands before the man responsible for everything. His once proud father is reduced to begging for mercy. Ferda forces him to watch the complete destruction of the family he valued more than his own son. Witnessing everything collapse, the old man loses his sanity, and by the time Ferda leaves, the Resnova family has been erased from history. Yet even after achieving his revenge, the emptiness inside him remains. Soon, countless powerful warriors unite against him, branding him the continent's greatest enemy, but every battle only makes him stronger. Ferda eventually reaches the 8th circle, the highest level ever attained by a human, earning the title of legendary archmage. Even so, he remains unsatisfied. To obtain absolute power, he must reach the mythical 9th circle, the realm of demigods. While searching ancient records, he discovers the final ingredient for the ritual, the heart of the Red Dragon. That dragon is none other than Archduke Valdrova, the very woman whose marriage proposal changed his life forever. Determined to complete the ritual, Ferda tracks down the legendary dragon and challenges her. Valdrova quietly remarks that fate has a twisted sense of humor, bringing the man who was once meant to marry her to kill her instead. After an exhausting battle, Ferda demands that she stop resisting and accept her death. Rather than continuing the fight, the dragon calmly asks why he hates her so deeply. Ferda blames her obsession with finding a human husband for destroying his life. If she had never existed, he believes his family would never have abandoned him. Valdrova listens in silence before quietly saying that she finally understands. Her calm response immediately makes Ferda wary, but before he can react, she raises her own claws and tears open her chest. Ferda freezes in shock, realizing she is about to destroy the very heart he needs. He desperately tries to stop her. He fires a spell in hopes of interrupting her, but it only hastens the inevitable. As the dragon collapses, Ferda frantically searches for the heart until he finds it glowing with golden light, perfectly intact. Valdrova gently tells him to take it. Confused, Ferda demands to know why she willingly sacrificed herself. She explains that after hearing his story, she realized her existence had brought him nothing but pain. She then reflects on her own lonely life, confessing that she always hated the violent blood flowing through her veins. Whenever she lived among humans, they feared her. Although she longed for a peaceful family, her presence only spread terror. Her dream was never conquest, but simply happiness. Believing everyone suffered because of her, she hopes Ferda can finally find peace through her sacrifice. A single tear falls from her eye before the dragon's enormous body finally collapses. For the first time in years, Ferda feels something other than hatred. An unbearable pain fills his chest. Unable to accept those emotions, he convinces himself that the dragon is trying to manipulate him even in death. Suppressing those feelings, he raises the glowing dragon heart. By absorbing its power, he believes he will surpass humanity and become a true demigod. The moment he consumes it, an enormous explosion engulfs everything. When the light fades, Ferda finds himself alone in an endless dark void. At first, he assumes it is merely a side effect of the ritual. Then a flood of unfamiliar memories crashes into his mind. A powerful surge of magic strikes him, and he realizes the memories belong to Valdrova. He experiences her loneliness, despair, and centuries of isolation. Compared to the burden she carried, his own hatred suddenly feels insignificant. Tears stream down his face as he finally understands the truth. He asks himself what he truly wanted: revenge, power, or to become a demigod. The answer is none of them. He remembers himself as a lonely child quietly drawing pictures of his family together. All he ever wanted was a family that accepted him. Looking through Valdrova's memories, he realizes she wished for exactly the same thing. By the time he understands, she is already gone by his own hands. Overwhelmed with regret, Ferda remembers one final spell available only to a ninth circle mage: wish magic. Even believing it is too late, he casts the ultimate spell. Suddenly someone calls his name. Ferda opens his eyes to find himself back inside his father's office. His father is repeating the same words from years earlier, announcing that his marriage to Archduke Valdrova has already been decided and warning him of the consequences of refusing. Ferda immediately realizes he has traveled back in time. Determined not to repeat his greatest mistake, he looks his father in the eye and accepts the engagement without hesitation. The second son of the Resnova family, Han Resnova, is stunned to learn that Ferda has willingly accepted the engagement with Archduke Valdrova. Knowing his younger brother, he cannot believe Ferda would willingly walk toward what everyone considers certain ruin. When the butler confirms the news, he explains that Ferda has dismissed all the servants, locked himself inside his room, and is preparing to leave. Amused, Han decides to visit him one last time, expecting to find him overwhelmed with despair. Instead, he kicks the bedroom door open and freezes. Rather than breaking down, Ferda is calmly getting ready for the journey. Without showing any surprise, he questions his brother's manners for entering without knocking. Unable to understand the sudden change, Han asks if Ferda truly realizes what accepting the engagement means. Ferda calmly replies that he knows exactly what awaits him. He is about to be cast out of the Resnova family. Han laughs and reminds him that being expelled is the least of his concerns before asking if he knows why the position of the Archduke's groom has remained vacant for so long. He then begins recounting what happened to the previous candidate. First groom was the Empire's third prince, a man admired for both his intelligence and appearance. He even gave up his claim to the throne for the marriage. Yet only a day after arriving in Valdrova's territory, he was found barely alive, beaten beyond recognition, with his spirit completely broken. Hukin mocks Ferda, asking if he truly believes he can survive what even a prince could not. Ferda's expression remains unchanged. He calmly replies that he already knows everything. Realizing he cannot shake his younger brother's resolve, Hukin warns him never to consider running away. If Ferda disgraces the family by fleeing, Hukin vows to kill him before Valdrova ever has the chance. Ferda only looks at him with quiet disdain. Instead of responding to the threat, he advises Hukin to focus on controlling his own desires before casually exposing the secret everyone already whispers about, that he has been pursuing their eldest brother's wife. The revelation instantly changes Hukin's expression. Furious, he charges at Ferda, but Ferda calmly reminds him that his face is far too valuable now. Showing up bruised would leave a terrible first impression on his future bride. ride. Speechless, Hyukin can only watch as Ferda walks past him and heads for the waiting carriage. Outside the mansion, the old butler tearfully claims it has been an honor serving the young master all these years. Ferda almost laughs. He remembers that this same butler had secretly poisoned his meals for years, making him believe his weak body was natural. Even the servants had worked against him. For a brief moment, he considers taking revenge. Instead, he gently places a hand on the butler's shoulder, politely thanks him for his years of service, and remarks that pretending to tolerate him for so long must have been difficult. The butler immediately stiffens, understanding the hidden meaning behind those words. Without another comment, Ferda bids everyone farewell and quietly boards the carriage. As the journey begins, he notices something unexpected. His heart feels peaceful, perhaps because he already settled every score in his previous life. Watching the scenery pass outside the window, he reflects on the terrifying magic he once relied upon. Hatred had given him immense power, but the more he depended on it, the more it consumed him. Eventually, it stopped being a weapon and became a poison that devoured both his mind and soul. Now, for the first time in years, that hatred is gone, and the silence feels comforting instead of empty. Several hours later, the carriage reaches its destination. The frightened coachman hurriedly announces their arrival before driving away as fast as possible, helping the young master somehow survive. A lonely wooden sign marks the entrance to Valdrova's territory, warning that outsiders are forbidden to enter. With no one around, Ferda calmly sits on his luggage and waits. He considers using simple fourth circle magic in case wild beasts appear, but before he can act, a breeze rustles through the forest. Someone is watching him. A young maid quietly steps out from between the trees. Introducing herself as Ruri, a loyal servant of Valdrova, she confirms his identity and offers to escort him to the castle. As they walk, Ferda recalls a truth most of the continent ignores. Although the Arkan Empire prides itself on its military strength, its eastern border exists only because of Valdrova. Beyond those lands lies the demon territory, filled with monsters no human army could stop. The feared red dragon alone protects the frontier. Many spread rumors that she commands monsters and dreams of conquering humanity, but Ferda knows they are nothing more than cowardly lies spoken only when the dragon is absent. When wolves quietly emerge from the forest, Ruri casually casts a protective spell and assures him they will never attack while she is nearby. Curious, Ferda asks how much farther the castle is. Ruri calmly tells him it is still 2 hours away on foot. Surprised, he asks how she reached him so quickly. She casually replies that if she had been flying alone, it would have taken only 10 seconds. That confirms Ferda's suspicion. Ruri is no ordinary maid but a dragonkin, naturally blessed with overwhelming strength and powerful magic while concealing her horns and tail from humans. Trying his luck, Ferda jokingly suggests they simply fly the rest of the way. Ruri immediately rejects the idea, making it clear she has no intention of carrying him. With no alternative, they continue the long hike through the forest in silence. By the time they reach the massive castle, Ferda is completely exhausted. Ruri knocks on the enormous gate and announces that her master's groom has arrived. As Ferda approaches, he feels an overwhelming pressure radiating from within. Even without seeing her, he recognizes the incredible presence of the red dragon. Ruri asks him to wait outside while she delivers the message, but Ferda politely requests to speak with Valdrova directly. She stares at him in disbelief. Someone of his status has no right to stand before her master. A short time later, Ruri returns with the Archduke's reply. Valdrova thanks him for making the difficult journey but has no intention of forcing anyone into marriage. If he wishes, he is free to leave. Ferda is genuinely surprised. In his previous life, he would have accepted the offer immediately. This time is different. He did not come because he was forced, he came because he chose to. Looking directly at Ruri, he firmly declares that he has no intention of turning back and sincerely wishes to continue the engagement. Reluctantly, Ruri returns once more, this time carrying an enormous sack filled with gold coins. She explains that her master is offering him enough wealth to start a new life anywhere he wishes. Ferda barely glances at the fortune. Neither money nor power interests him anymore. Instead, he calmly extends his hand and states the only thing he truly wants, to become Valdrova's groom. That answer finally pushes Ruri beyond her patience. With a deep sigh, she erupts in anger, orders him to leave immediately, and clenches her fist. Ferda notices her reaction is far too emotional to have come from the Archduke herself. Unable to deny it, Ruri admits those are her own feelings. Her disguise vanishes. Massive horns emerge from her head, sharp claws replace her fingernails, a powerful reptilian tail appears behind her, and an overwhelming green aura erupts from her body. Dragon fear. The crushing pressure instantly slams Ferda to the ground. Ruri coldly declares that humans are all the same, greedy creatures driven by ambition. Only then does Ferda realize what truly happened to the third prince. It was never Valdrova who broke him. It was Ruri. She explains that Prince sought the marriage only to control and exploit the dragon for political power. Seeing through his greed, she crushed him before he could get anywhere near her master. Holding Ferda down with her claws pressed against his chest, she asks whether he truly wants to suffer the same fate. Despite the overwhelming pressure, Ferda simply smiles. He raises his hand and sincerely promises that he was never forced into this engagement. He seeks no wealth, authority, or personal gain. Remembering Valdrova's sacrifice in his previous life, he declares with complete conviction that this time he intends to stand by her side. He came for only one reason, to become Valdrova's groom. Still pinned beneath Ruri's claws, Ferda calmly adds that if they are truly going to become husband and wife, then Valdrova should speak with him directly instead of sending messages through a maid. The bold remark nearly makes Ruri lose control. Her fist trembles with anger as she calls his words absurd and lunges forward. Just before striking him, she suddenly stops. After taking a deep breath, Ruri reluctantly steps back and excuses herself, saying she needs a moment. Inside the castle, she respectfully kneels before the true ruler of the territory. Grand Duchess Valdrova appears in her elegant human form. With her long crimson hair and calm demeanor, it is hard to believe she is the legendary red dragon feared across the continent. Curious, the Duchess asks whether the young man truly said all those things. Ruri immediately criticizes him, saying he is incredibly weak and was nearly exhausted from nothing more than the walk to the castle. In her opinion, he should simply be sent away. A single glance from the Duchess silences her. Awkwardly correcting herself, Ruri admits that despite his frail appearance, Ferda is actually quite handsome. Valdrova quietly reminds her that she never asked about his appearance. Letting out a defeated sigh, Ruri finally answers honestly. As a dragonkin, she can easily terrify ordinary humans, yet even after releasing her full dragon fear, Ferda never showed genuine terror. Because of that, she believes he is one of the few humans capable of looking directly into the Duchess's eyes without breaking. A gentle smile appears on Valdrova's face. Rather than taking offense, she seems genuinely pleased. For the first time, she feels there may finally be someone who can speak to her as an ordinary person instead of trembling in fear. Ruri cannot understand why her master is so happy over something so simple, but she quietly accepts the decision. Returning outside, she informs Ferda that the Duchess has agreed to continue the engagement. She then escorts him into the castle and shows him to the room where he will be staying. Ferda is pleasantly surprised. Instead of the gloomy fortress he expected, the castle is spotless and meticulously maintained. Curious, he asks who takes care of such a massive place. Ruri proudly replies that she does. Aside from her master, she is the castle's only servant. When Ferda casually asks about the wedding, she explains that it will be a small private ceremony held exactly 1 month later in the dragon's lair. 1 month. Ferda quietly memorizes the deadline. Crossing her arms, Ruri's expression turns serious. She explains that no one will simply hand him the right to marry the Duchess. The next 30 days are a test. Before the ceremony, he must prove he is worthy of standing beside someone as extraordinary as Valdrova. Ferda asks if the challenge came from the Duchess herself. Ruri shakes her head. It is entirely her decision. She explains that her master is too kind and willing to forgive anyone, but she refuses to let just anyone enter Valdrova's life. Even if Ferda was born weak, he must prove he has the potential to earn the dragon's trust. Otherwise, she will never recognize him as her master's partner. Rather than taking offense, Ferda smiles. Seeing someone so devoted to protecting Valdrova genuinely makes him happy. He admires Ruri's loyalty, though he cannot help wondering where those loyal allies were when the dragon faced her final moments completely alone in his previous life. Accepting the challenge, he jokingly asks if becoming emperor would be enough. Ruri coldly replies that she only expects him to become someone others cannot look down on. Ferda smiles again. On the surface, the requirement sounds simple, but in reality, proving himself worthy of the red dragon is an even greater challenge than surpassing an emperor. Without hesitation, he accepts every condition. His calm confidence only makes Ruri more suspicious. She bluntly asks if he has lost his mind. Ferda simply assures her that within 1 month he will show her what he is capable of. Night falls over the castle. Alone in his room, Ferda begins thinking about the greatest obstacle before him. He has no magic. Although he once reached the legendary 9th circle in his previous life, all of that power is gone. If he wants to keep his promise, he must start from the beginning. He remembers that the first circle is the most important stage in a mage's life because it determines the foundation of all future mana. Most mages form a blue circle through calm meditation and stable emotions. His previous power came from a red circle fueled entirely by hatred. It granted immense strength but slowly drove him insane. This time, he refuses to repeat that mistake. Even if rebuilding his power takes longer, he chooses the path of the blue circle. A week passes. Day after day, Ferda meditates in silence, trying to recreate what he once mastered. At last, a faint blue glow gathers between his hands. Then it fades away. Another failure. Normally, creating a blue circle takes nearly 3 years. Ferda believed his future memories would shorten that process, but reality proves far more difficult. With only 3 weeks left before the wedding, time is running out. Just then, Ruri enters the room. She notices that despite an entire week of effort, Ferda still has nothing to show for it. While calmly eating his meal, he simply replies that things will eventually work out if he keeps trying. Ruri can only stare at him in frustration. Even Ferda realizes he needs a different approach. Before he can think any further, the entire castle suddenly shakes as a violent tremor echoes through the walls. Surprised, he asks what is happening. Ruri calmly explains that the Duchess is hunting monsters along the eastern border. Ferda immediately wants to see the battle himself, knowing Valdrova is risking her life to protect the continent. Ruri refuses at once, explaining that ordinary humans cannot withstand witnessing a battle on that level. She even mocks him, saying it would only embarrass him before the wedding. Ferda firmly refuses to stay behind. If he truly intends to become her partner, then watching her fight is the least he should do. Seeing his determination, Ruri finally gives in. Her dragon wings spread wide as she grabs him and launches into the sky. The flight is so unbelievably fast that it feels almost like teleportation. The moment they land, Ferda drops to his knees, barely stopping himself from throwing up. Ignoring his condition, Ruri tells him to stand up and look ahead. From the top of a massive cliff, Ferda looks down into a dark valley blanketed by an enormous purple mist where gigantic monsters roam freely. Then a blazing red figure bursts through the darkness. The red dragon, Valdrova, tears across the battlefield like a living natural disaster. 2 colossal serpents charge toward her, but she effortlessly tears through one with her claws before sinking her fangs into the other's neck. A blazing inferno gathers inside her mouth, turning the entire valley crimson. A devastating stream of fire erupts, instantly engulfing the battlefield in a sea of flames. Even from the safety of the cliff, the scorching heat and violent shockwaves crash into Ferda. Then Valdrova roars. The sound alone spreads across the battlefield like a physical force. The overwhelming pressure crushes Ferda's body. Cold sweat pours down his face as his legs give way beneath him, forcing him to his knees while he struggles just to breathe. For the first time since returning to the past, he fully understands the terrifying difference between humans and dragons. Looking down at him without sympathy, Ruri tells him that this is the true form of the woman he wishes to marry, the legendary red dragon, Valdrova. Still kneeling beneath the crushing pressure, Ferda struggles to catch his breath. Ruri continues, saying it is absurd for a mere human to believe he can stand beside a dragon. She wants him to understand exactly what choosing Valdrova as his partner truly means. Seeing his trembling hand pressed against the ground, she assumes he has finally realized the impossible gap between humans and dragons. She explains that the blood of a red dragon carries an uncontrollable instinct for destruction. Violence is part of their very existence, and creatures with such overwhelming power can never truly coexist with ordinary humans. To her, this engagement is nothing more than a dream destined to end in tragedy. But instead of fear, a quiet smile appears on Ferda's face. He simply calls the sight before him magnificent. The single word catches Ruri completely off guard. Rather than terror, she sees genuine admiration in his eyes as he watches Valdrova fight. For a brief moment, she cannot decide whether this human is fearless or simply insane. Later that night, the castle grows quiet beneath the moonlight. Lying in bed, Ferda reflects on everything he witnessed. His body still aches from enduring the dragon's overwhelming aura and deafening roar, and even Ruri looked exhausted after carrying him back at such incredible speed. Considering everything he experienced, he realizes it is almost a miracle that his mind remained intact. As he replays the battle in his mind, one question continues to bother him. Why was he so determined to witness that fight? The answer soon becomes clear. He wanted to see her, not the terrifying monster feared across the continent, but the dragon who silently fought alone on the eastern frontier, risking everything to protect the people she cared about. Watching her battle countless monsters, Ferda finally understands the kind of person Valdrova truly is. To him, she resembles a noble knight who willingly chose a lonely path of endless sacrifice so others could live in peace. A gentle smile spreads across his face. Someone as remarkable as her agreed to become his future partner. The thought alone fills him with admiration. Suddenly, crimson mana begins gathering in his hands. Ferda immediately panics. It is the same red circle that consumed him in his previous life. Desperately, he tries to suppress it, refusing to walk that cursed path again. But something is different. Looking closer, he realizes the mana is no longer responding to hatred. Instead, every time he remembers Valdrova's battle, it flows more smoothly. The emotion fueling this power is completely different. It is neither revenge nor anger. Sitting down to meditate, Ferda carefully focuses on that unfamiliar feeling. He compresses the crimson mana, slowly shaping it into a stable form. The energy spins faster and faster around him as he pours all of his concentration into creating a single magic circle. At last he succeeds. A complete red circle is formed. Opening his eyes, Ferda immediately senses the difference. This is not the corrupted magic from his previous life. His new red circle is born from an entirely different emotion. Smiling with quiet confidence, he vows never to repeat the mistakes that once destroyed his life. The next morning, Ruri enters his room as usual. The moment she senses his mana, she is stunned. She can hardly believe he activated his mana circuits overnight and demands to know how he accomplished something that normally takes years. Ferda simply grins, saying he is far from an ordinary person, before asking what she thinks of his progress. Reluctantly, Ruri admits he has passed her first test. Ferda knows it is only the beginning. He asks if there is a place nearby where he can practice magic. Soon, Ruri prepares a simple training ground filled with straw targets. Ferda thanks her and she questions why he requested ordinary targets instead of expensive magical equipment. He explains that before increasing his power, he first needs absolute control over his mana. To Ruri, that sounds unnecessary. As a dragonkin, controlling magical energy is as natural as breathing. Ferda smiles. Those born with overwhelming power could never understand how much effort humans must invest to reach the same level. He asks her to watch carefully. The blue circle relies on calm emotions and perfect stability. The red circle is different. To master it, he must stir his emotions while controlling them at the same time. Balancing those opposing forces is the key to unlocking its true potential. In his previous life, it took him an entire year to draw mana from his hatred and another year to condense it into a single projectile. Now, with all the experience he carried back through time, he completes the same process in only 2 minutes. Ruri watches in stunned silence as a perfectly stable sphere of crimson mana forms above his hand. Then a second appears, then a third. 3 crimson projectiles float around him without the slightest instability. With a calm gesture, Ferda points toward the training targets. The spheres shoot forward like blazing comets and explode on impact. When the smoke clears, every target has been completely destroyed. Looking at his hands, Ferda smiles. It seems he has not forgotten how to use magic after all. Ruri says nothing. She simply watches him, quietly reevaluating everything she believed about this mysterious human. Later, she reports everything to Valdrova. The Duchess listens as Ruri explains that Ferda awakened as a mage far faster than anyone should have been able to. Curious, Valdrova asks how he performed. Ruri gives an answer she never expected herself. He was perfect. He made no mistakes. Ironically, that flawless performance is exactly what concerns her. In her experience, no ordinary human could possess such ability without hiding something. Valdrova smiles, amused that Ruri is praising a human despite trying so hard to distrust him. Although she remains cautious, the Duchess says she wants to believe the sincerity Ferda has shown so far. Ruri, however, remembers how humans hurt her master in the past. Determined not to let history repeat itself, she resolves to uncover Ferda's true intentions. An idea soon comes to mind. She suggests giving Ferda an important responsibility. Interested, Valdrova asks what she has in mind. Sometime later, Ferda arrives wearing an elegant crimson noble outfit as his presence is formally announced. Inside the Grand Duchess's meeting hall, the territory's most influential nobles gather after receiving her unexpected summons. Many complain about being called away, while monsters continue threatening the eastern frontier. Soon the discussion shifts to an even stranger topic. Rumors have spread that someone actually accepted Valdrova's marriage proposal. The nobles can hardly believe it. Some laugh, calling the groom a fool, while others dismiss him as a weak noble who cannot even wield a sword despite being born into the prestigious Risnova family. Seated confidently at the head of the table, Count Olivia dismisses the matter entirely, believing the young man will not survive long enough to become anyone's concern. At that moment, the massive doors open. Ferda calmly enters the hall with Ruri following behind him. Earlier that day, while reading in the castle library, Ferda had asked why meeting the local lords was necessary. Ruri explained that Valdrova earned the title of Grand Duchess after defeating the Black Dragon Godwin and receiving these lands as her reward. Since she now devotes herself entirely to protecting the eastern frontier, governing the territory will eventually become the responsibility of her future husband. Valdrova protects the borders. Ferda must govern everything within them. Recognizing this as another test, he gladly accepts. Standing before the assembled nobles, Ferda introduces himself as the Grand Duchess's future husband. Without wasting time, he asks a simple question. How would they like to be treated by him? The direct question immediately changes the atmosphere. The nobles quickly realize he is not someone they can easily intimidate. Count Olivia responds diplomatically, saying everyone present has faithfully served the Grand Duchess for years. While they respect her future husband, they pledged their loyalty to the empire long before Ferda was born, subtly implying that he should respect their experience. Ferda quietly listens until the count finishes. Then he calmly asks whether that is truly their final answer. His steady gaze immediately fills the hall with tension. Even Count Olivia hesitates before admitting that, as the future lord of the territory, Ferda has every right to speak as he wishes. Satisfied, Ferda explains that after the marriage, he has no intention of taking away anyone's authority. Each noble may continue governing their own lands. One furious lord suddenly slams both hands onto the table and demands to know whether Ferda is accusing them of exploiting their people. Ferda calmly apologizes with obvious sarcasm, saying it was merely an unfortunate choice of words. The noble immediately loses his temper. Mocking Ferda for being abandoned by his own family, he proudly declares himself a fourth circle mage while dismissing Ferda as nothing more than a first circle beginner. Ferda simply nods. A fourth circle mage. That should be enough. His casual response only endears the man further. As the noble begins gathering mana, determined to teach the newcomer a lesson, Ferda raises a hand and proposes settling the matter with a duel. Moments later, both men stand inside the arena while the surrounding nobles quietly discuss the obvious outcome. After all, a first circle mage defeating a fourth circle mage seems impossible. Only Ruri remains silent. Standing with his hands in his pockets, Ferda casually asks which spell his opponent intends to use. The question offends the noble, who arrogantly offers him one last chance to surrender before revealing his ultimate technique, fourth circle magic explosion. Even the spectators grow nervous, wondering if Ferda will survive. Completely unfazed, Ferda calmly announces his own spell. Mana shot. The arena erupts in laughter. Using such a basic spell against advanced fourth circle magic appears almost suicidal. But Ferda has no intention of losing. As his opponent gathers an enormous amount of mana and a massive crimson transmutation circle spreads beneath his feet, Ferda immediately recognizes the familiar flow of energy. Another red circle user. Without giving him another second, Ferda fires 3 crimson mana shots. The projectiles streak across the arena with unbelievable speed. His opponent's confident expression instantly vanishes. The attacks are far faster than he expected. Ferda calmly states that the duel is already over. The 3 crimson projectiles strike the magic circle itself instead of the mage, each one hitting a critical structural point with flawless precision. The entire spell collapses before it can activate. The resulting magical backlash throws the fourth circle mage backward as his own mana shatters around him. The arena falls completely silent. Breaking an active magic circle is an advanced technique that even experienced mages struggle to perform. Yet Ferda dismantles the entire spell with nothing more than 3 simple mana shots. Unable to believe what happened, the defeated mage drops to his knees. His mana has completely dispersed, leaving him unable to continue. Ferda slowly walks over and without arrogance or mockery, quietly asks whether the duel is over. The defeated mage lowers his head and with tears in his eyes admits defeat. He confesses that he has always wanted to become stronger and if following Ferda can help him achieve that dream, he is willing to do anything. The surrounding nobles whisper in disbelief until Ruri silences them, warning anyone who questions Ferda's victory to keep those thoughts to themselves. The defeated mage respectfully shakes Ferda's hand and introduces himself as Thessalos Walter. Smiling, he remarks that perhaps being exiled from the capital was the greatest blessing of his life. The moment Ferda hears his name, his expression changes. A forgotten memory from his previous life resurfaces. Thessalos Walter was once one of the people who helped him the most, his greatest benefactor. Confused by Ferda's reaction, Thessalos asks what he means. Instead of answering, Ferda gently places a finger on the man's forehead. His expression turns completely emotionless as he quietly casts a single spell. Mana shot. A point-blank blast erupts instantly, sending Thessalos flying backward before he crashes lifelessly onto the arena floor. The entire hall freezes. Standing over the fallen mage without a trace of emotion, Ferda silently reflects that he could not allow Thessalos to live. In his previous life, this very man would one day bring immense suffering to Valdrova. Without showing the slightest regret, Ferda calmly walks away. The arena falls into complete silence as every noble stares at him in horror. Moments earlier, they had witnessed a duel. Now they have watched the Grand Duchess's future husband execute a noble after the battle had already ended. Fear spreads through the hall. Some call his actions cowardly, yet none of them dare challenge him. Noticing their uneasy expressions, Ferda casually asks why everyone suddenly seems so tense. He calmly explains that Thessalos deserved to die and that sparing him would have brought great suffering to the Grand Duchess. Count Olivia immediately questions how Ferda could know such a thing when today was supposedly their first meeting. Ferda simply smiles. He explains that Valdrova fights every day because she sincerely wants humanity to live in peace. Even as a dragon, she continues risking her life to protect them. Thessalos would one day betray those ideals. Unfortunately, that betrayal belongs to the future, making it impossible to prove. The nobles exchange confused glances. To them, Ferda has just killed a man for a crime that has not yet happened. He makes it clear that whether they believe him is irrelevant. Later, a royal carriage races beneath the evening sky. Inside, Ferda leans against his seat, clutching his aching head. Using such perfectly controlled mana shots exhausted nearly all of his magical energy, and the rough ride only worsens his nausea. He cannot help missing the magically powered vehicles from his previous life. Watching him suffer, Ruri sarcastically congratulates him on killing the Grand Duchess's most loyal noble during their very first official meeting. Surprised, Ferda asks if she is referring to Thessalos. Ruri confirms it. Despite his flaws, Thessalos had always been fiercely loyal to Valdrova. That answer makes Ferda pause. He carefully asks whether the man was truly honorable. Ruri bluntly replies that he was half honest and half corrupt, but compared to the other nobles, that still made him one of the better ones. Even so, Ferda insists eliminating him was the right decision. Closing his eyes, he searches through the memories of his previous life. Looking at the sack containing Thessalos' severed head, he remembers exactly what the man should be hiding at this very moment. When they arrive at Thessalos's estate, the chief butler respectfully welcomes the Grand Duchess's representatives. Before the greeting can finish, Ferda calmly informs him that his master is already dead. Without hesitation, Rory tosses the heavy sack into the butler's arms and casually instructs him to hang its contents above the estate gate for everyone to see. The confused butler opens the sack. The moment he recognizes his master's severed head, panic overtakes him. Ignoring the chaos outside, Ferda and Rory head straight for Thessalos's private chamber. Rory reminds him they still need solid evidence proving the Lord's crimes. Ferda jokingly points out that she already helped by carrying the head. Rory immediately threatens to take it back and cancel the engagement altogether. Their exchange ends when Ferda notices something unusual beneath the bed. A hidden passage. He searches for the mechanism to open it, but after watching him struggle for a moment, Rory loses patience. She tells him to step aside. Then she punches the floor. The entire wooden floor shatters in a single strike, revealing the staircase hidden beneath. Sometimes brute force really is the answer. The two descend into the underground passage. As they venture deeper, the stench of blood and decay grows unbearable. Covering their noses, they finally reach a hidden laboratory. The horrifying scene explains everything. Human and monster corpses are scattered throughout the room. Surgical tools lie beside grotesque experiments where monster organs have been grafted onto living humans. One chained soldier remains trapped among the horrific creations. Ferda immediately realizes the truth. Thessalos had secretly become a necromancer serving the Demon King, using forbidden magic to conduct inhuman experiments. Rory's anger erupts instantly. She admits that anyone responsible for atrocities like these deserved execution. For the first time, she openly agrees that Ferda's decision was justified. Even so, one question continues to bother her. How did he know this hidden laboratory even existed? Ferda ignores the question. Instead, his attention turns to a stack of research documents. A faint smile appears on his face. He has found exactly what he came for. The notes describe Thessalos's greatest achievement, a method of infinite mana cultivation. According to the research, monsters continuously generate mana throughout their lives. Although their mana is too corrupted to use directly, recreating that biological process could allow a mage to produce limitless pure mana. Such a discovery would completely overturn the limitations of the traditional magic circle system. The documents also reveal Thessalos's true ambition. He planned to build an undead army, destroy the nobles who exiled him, and eventually become an archmage himself. Ferda quietly remembers reading these same documents in his previous life. Back then, he intended to use the technique to fuel his own revenge. Now the forbidden research has returned to his hands once again. Studying it would allow him to regain his strength far more quickly. Seeing his hesitation, Rory assumes any ambitious human would keep such priceless knowledge. She even points out that no one would ever know if he secretly took it. To her complete surprise, Ferda hands the documents to her. He calmly tells her to burn every page. Rory stares at him in disbelief. She cannot understand how any mage could willingly destroy knowledge capable of changing the world. Ferda admits the research is extraordinary, but he also understands its cost. Power gained through hatred would eventually lead him down the same path as before. He refuses to let history repeat itself. Looking directly into Rory's eyes, he quietly asks her to destroy everything. Without another word, blue dragon flames ignite in her hand. The fire consumes every document. Soon, the entire laboratory is engulfed in blue flames as the forbidden research, twisted experiments, and mutilated bodies are reduced to ashes. Watching the flames spread, Ferda remembers how hatred once became the foundation of all his magic. He survived only by feeding the darkness within himself. This time, he chooses a different future. As the last traces of the laboratory disappear, he feels as though he has finally cast aside another piece of his old life. Rory quietly watches him. She still finds this human unpredictable and more than a little crazy, but for the first time her opinion of him begins to change. With a quiet sigh, she tells him they should leave before the smell of blood clings to their clothes. After all, arriving at his engagement ceremony with the Grand Duchess smelling like a battlefield would hardly make a good impression. The story shifts to the day of the engagement ceremony at Archduchess Valdrova's castle. Before the ceremony begins, Rory checks whether Ferda has finished writing his engagement vows. Ferda confirms they are complete and explains that the Archduchess wanted them to exchange personally written vows during the moon ceremony, revealing a surprisingly romantic side of herself. Rory sighs sighs in frustration. To her, that is simply a pleasant way of describing the situation. She cannot accept that the symbol of absolute power is holding her engagement ceremony in a place she considers even worse than a stable, believing it diminishes her master's dignity. Ferda notices the concern on Ruri's face. Although she is not particularly excited about the engagement, he realizes she genuinely wants Valdrova to be happy. Seeing her struggle with those conflicting feelings saddens him. Ruri catches his expression and immediately becomes annoyed, warning him not to wrinkle the formal clothes she worked so hard to prepare. Ferda quietly accepts her frustration, feeling that if venting at him eases her worries, then he does not mind. As they continue talking, Ferda remarks that everything has remained peaceful since their last meeting. He then brings up the current condition of the archduchy, pointing out that none of the feudal lords seem capable of managing the front lines. Ruri agrees. She explains that the system worked when the lords were given autonomy, but without proper oversight they have become obsessed with enriching themselves. They now suppress the citizens' complaints through military force, making a large-scale rebellion seem inevitable. Ferda realizes the situation is far more serious than he expected. He believes the crisis could be resolved immediately if the Archduchess personally intervened. A single order from her would force every lord to beg for forgiveness. As Ruri walks away, she tells him he will soon understand why Valdrova refuses to interfere. Soon afterward, Ferda is asked to take his place as the engagement ceremony begins. The moment it starts, an overwhelming pressure pours through the doorway, making it feel as though the air itself is crushing his body. For a moment, he wonders whether someone like him truly deserves to stand before Valdrova. Then she appears in her majestic dragon form and extends her hand. Ruri officially begins the moon ceremony, declaring that the ritual will unite mortality and immortality into one, forging a golden bond that neither heavenly authority nor the passage of time can sever. She proclaims that the mortal will overcome the unknown and cast aside all fear. She then hands Ferda the ceremonial liquor. After taking a drink, Ferda immediately realizes it is no ordinary liquor. As its effects spread, the dragon's overwhelming aura gradually begins to fade. Ruri continues the ceremony, declaring that the immortal will become whole by casting aside the endless futility of eternal existence. It is then Valdrova's turn to drink. However, as she reaches for the cup, her hands begin trembling uncontrollably. Unable to steady herself, she accidentally spills the liquor and insists on starting the ceremony over. A short time later, the ritual begins again. As Ruri repeats the ceremonial words, Ferda drinks another cup. He quickly realizes this process has already been repeated several times. Despite never drinking alcohol before, he has already consumed far too much and begins worrying that continuing like this may become dangerous. Meanwhile, Valdrova grows so nervous that she spills the ceremonial liquor again. That finally pushes Ruri beyond her limit. Excusing herself for a moment, she marches over to Valdrova and firmly scolds her. She reminds her that marrying a mortal was her own decision. She points out that everyone has worked tirelessly to prepare this ceremony, yet her fiancé has been waiting while she continues hiding. She warns that such behavior will only leave a terrible impression and firmly tells her to face him with confidence. If she spills the liquor one more time, Ruri promises she will not overlook. After finishing her lecture, she returns to the ceremony. By now, Ferda is completely exhausted from listening to the argument. Ruri asks whether he heard everything. Ferda admits the shouting was so overwhelming that it felt no different from a dragon's breath. Letting out a tired sigh, Ruri explains she had no choice if they wanted the ceremony to continue. She finally reveals the real reason behind Valdrova's behavior. Despite being the legendary red dragon, she is actually afraid of interacting with humans. Because of that fear, she rarely leaves her den except to hunt monsters. Ferda is stunned to discover that someone as powerful as Valdrova has such an unexpected weakness. He wonders how the ceremony can possibly continue under those circumstances. Few moments later, Valdrova finally appears in her human form. However, she is completely covered in heavy armor, leaving almost nothing visible. Seeing her, Ferda notices that even her face is hidden behind an enormous helmet. He had always heard that dragons became extraordinarily beautiful in human form. Instead, she looks more like a knight preparing for war. Despite the unusual appearance, Ruri resumes the ceremony. She once again declares that the mortal will overcome the unknown and cast aside fear, while the immortal will erase the futility of endless existence. The ceremonial liquor is poured once more. This time, Valdrova successfully drinks it. As she raises the cup, part of her face becomes visible. Her breathtaking beauty and graceful appearance leave Ferda completely speechless. He begins wondering whether he he has simply drunk too much ceremonial liquor because every trace of his instinctive fear has disappeared. Then he realizes the truth. Everything before him had been carefully prepared so that an ordinary human like himself could stand before the red dragon without being overwhelmed. With the ritual complete, Ruri announces that it is time for both of them to read the vows they personally wrote. Ferda unfolds his letter. He realizes the words he originally prepared no longer carry the same meaning after returning to the past. Even so, he speaks from the heart. He tells Valdrova that although she barely knows him, he already knows everything about her. He explains that she once gave him her heart, and through that heart he came to understand her completely. He witnessed her being betrayed, falsely accused, and forced to endure countless hardships, yet she never abandoned her responsibilities. She continued protecting others with dignity, even embracing those who hated her without reason. Ferda admits that her unwavering kindness guided him back onto the right path. Because of that, he vows to offer his own heart to her, just as she once offered hers to him. He declares that she is his sovereign and everything to him. Finally, setting aside the written vows, he sincerely confesses that it is an absolute honor to be engaged to someone as beautiful as she is. When he finishes, Valdrova remains completely silent. Ruri then asks for the future bride's vows. Instead of answering, Valdrova quietly turns around and walks back inside. With no other choice, Ruri officially declares the engagement ceremony concluded and asks Ferda to leave. After he departs, Ruri immediately goes to check on Valdrova. The Archduchess quietly apologizes and asks if she may remain secluded for the next 3 days. At first, Ruri completely misunderstands the situation. She praises her master, believing Valdrova had intentionally left Ferda emotionally shaken. Admiring what she assumes is the refined elegance of a dragon, she convinces herself that everything had been planned from the beginning and that the initiative now rests entirely with Valdrova. However, after calming down, Ruri suddenly realizes the truth. None of it was intentional. Valdrova had genuinely been looking forward to the engagement ceremony all along. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, she can do nothing but blush shyly in response.
Valdrova quietly admitted that she had wanted to read her wedding vows as well, welcoming Ferda as her partner. Confused, Ruri asked why she had not done so. Valdrova lowered her gaze and explained that she simply could not bring herself to look Ferda in the eyes and say those words. His piercing gaze felt as though it could see straight through her, while his calm, gentle voice made it even harder to remain composed. The moment she looked at him, her mind went completely blank, leaving her unable to remember anything she had prepared. Ruri sighed and admitted that her own mind was going blank as well. However, she reminded her master that Ferda was now officially her fiancée and would eventually govern the East in her place. Humans could change once they gained power, just as the third imperial prince had in the past. Although she apologized for bringing up painful memories from decades earlier, she insisted that it was the most sincere advice she could give. Valdrova quietly accepted her concern. She acknowledged that mortals were destined to disappear one day and decided it would be better to bury the strange feelings she had developed. Though her voice remained calm, there was a quiet sadness in her words, as if she were trying to convince herself. Afterward, the engagement ceremony officially came to an end. Later, Ferda lies alone in his room, staring at the ceiling and reflecting on what happened. He finds it strange that he has actually become engaged to the great Valdrova. In his previous life, hatred and anger had consumed him so completely that he could no longer feel anything else. This time, however, everything is different. Ever since the ceremony, he keeps wanting to relive the moment. His red circle has also gone completely berserk. A runaway circle can destroy its own caster, but if controlled properly, that same unstable power can become an opportunity for tremendous growth. Ferda has already reached the peak of magic once, so returning there is no longer an impossible goal. A circle requires 2 things to evolve: mental strength and mana. As a first circle wizard, Ferda's mana is still limited, but his mental strength, which once reached the level of an archmage, is more than sufficient. With complete confidence, he focuses on the violent mana surging inside him and carefully guides every strand without wasting any of it. He layers the mana together and successfully forms his second circle. With this, he can take another step toward Valdrova. 3 days later, Ruri arrives and is stunned to discover that Ferda has already reached the second circle. She asks whether red circle wizards normally grow this quickly. Ferda simply explains that it depends on the individual. However, he knows the red circle carries a hidden cost. Every time a new circle is formed, it demands an even stronger emotional stimulus. Eventually, the strongest emotion the circle remembers becomes permanently embedded in its caster. In his previous life, Ferda awakened his circle through hatred. Even after taking revenge, he could not stop. He kept searching for more things to hate. Remembering those days only strengthens his determination to avoid repeating the same mistake. Soon afterward, Ruri leads Ferda through the fortress and stops before a large room. She explains that this is the ruler's office where he will work as the Grand Duchess's regent. Ferda enters and looks around. Although this is a dragon's fortress, everything has clearly been prepared with consideration for her fiancé. The thoughtful arrangements make him realize how much effort went into welcoming him. He straightens his posture and begins his first duty as regent. Valdrova's territory has been largely neglected by its feudal lords, but after Ferda exposed Thessalos' crimes and displayed his head, the nobles have become extremely cautious around him. With Ruri's assistance, managing them should be easier. His first step is to send letters to the lords he met previously. Ruri asks what he plans to write in his first official greeting. Ferda explains that he will simply tell them they will be working together from now on. Since he will handle internal affairs as regent, anyone who objects does not need to respond. The letters are soon delivered throughout the territory. With the nobles temporarily settled, Ferda turns his attention toward a much greater problem: the monsters. Their presence contaminates fertile farmland and causes countless deaths. Valdrova is constantly occupied fighting disaster-class monsters, but even she cannot eliminate every lesser creature spread throughout such a vast territory. Ferda decides that he needs to recruit capable people first. When Ruri asks whether he already has someone in mind, he hands her a document containing several names. The two leave the castle to search for the first candidate. As they travel, Ruri questions why they have to personally search for an unknown scholar. Their journey eventually takes them to Ascleia, the famous city of scholars. Ferda explains that Ruri has never heard of the man because he has not yet revealed his talent to the world. Ruri remains skeptical, warning that it would be dangerous to place an unknown person in charge of government affairs. She even wonders whether Ferda simply wrote the list on the spot. Ferda assures her that he would never do that. Although the list may look insignificant, it took him a long time to gather the information. The reason becomes clear through his memories. In his previous life, the list had actually been his hit list. He studied each person's achievements so he could find more reasons to hate them, and carefully observed their weaknesses so he could eventually take revenge. At the time, hatred had consumed him completely, leaving him paranoid and constantly searching for people to despise. Now, those memories serve as another reminder of the person he once was. While walking through Ascleia, a cheerful shopkeeper calls out to Ferda and Ruri, offering them snacks. Ferda approaches and asks whether many academy graduates visit the shop. The shopkeeper proudly confirms that they do, and mentions that he has been running the business for a long time. Ferda then asks if he knows someone nicknamed the Messy Scholar. The shopkeeper jokes about whether Ferda plans to turn his castle into a mess before recognizing the nickname. However, he admits that he is too busy running his business to remember every face. Before leaving, Ferda asks about the price. The shopkeeper charges 5 coops for 3 skewers. Ferda notices Ruri staring at them and immediately buys the skewers before handing them to her. He smiles faintly, surprised that she likes that kind of food. Ruri quickly turns away and insists she was only paying attention because of the information. Her reaction makes it obvious that she genuinely wanted the food. As they continue through the city, Ferda secretly smiles to himself. He had assumed Ruri might be someone whose emotions had dried up just like his own, but seeing her childish expression makes him realize otherwise. Feeling his gaze on her, Ruri misunderstands his intentions and becomes slightly flustered, instinctively stepping back. Without saying anything else, the two continue their search. Just then, as Ferda and Ruri passed a nearby building, a loud voice echoed from inside, warning that they might miss the right moment. Another desperate voice immediately followed, lamenting that all his research was blowing away. At Viridian Academy, the 525th graduation ceremony was underway. Among the graduates was Bernel Marquise, known as both the Academy's greatest freshman and its worst graduate. As Bernel received his graduation certificate, several people approached to congratulate him. Their presence quickly made him nervous when they reminded him that it was finally time to repay the money he owed. Bernel nervously laughed, knowing that nearly everything he owned was buried under debt. The men had repeatedly visited his home demanding repayment, but he always begged for more time. They reminded him that they had waited for years, expecting him to graduate and finally settle his debts. While they were talking, one of them noticed a terrible smell nearby. Following it, he discovered a disgusting animal carcass. Burnell quickly explained that it was actually a monster corpse. His research focused on converting useless monster corpses into mana stones and energy sources. Although obtaining the required materials was extremely difficult, he believed his research could eventually become a major breakthrough for the continent. The loan shark boss had no interest in hearing excuses. He reminded Burnell that he had waited because Burnell claimed to be developing groundbreaking research, then asked whether it could actually make money now. Burnell nervously admitted that it probably could not yet because there were still too many problems to solve. The boss mocked him for being a researcher who knew nothing about the real world. He ordered Burnell to abandon his research and suggested that he use his brilliant mind to develop weapons instead, reminding him that he had once been the Academy's top freshman. He then pulled out a dagger. Terrified, Burnell tried to explain that he had another research proposal, but the boss suddenly threw the dagger between his legs, making him scream. The boss warned that he had tried to be patient, but Burnell had become too picky. Someone drowning in debt had no right to choose how to repay it. Burnell desperately insisted that he could never develop weapons and begged for another option. The boss finally lost his patience. He kicked Burnell in the head and pinned him to the ground, angrily complaining that Burnell rejected every opportunity they offered. He then told Burnell to die, reminding him that loan sharks could not afford to lose even a single coin. The men surrounded Burnell and began beating him. Burnell screamed and begged them not to hit his head as the beating continued. He began genuinely fearing that he would die. Just then someone arrived and ordered them to stop. The newcomer calmly remarked that it seemed he had come to the right place. It was Ferda, who explained that he also had business with Burnell. The loan shark boss, still smoking, assumed Ferda was some wealthy noble from out of town and asked whether Burnell had borrowed money from him as well. Ferda denied it. The boss told him to wait until his turn, explaining that he would first beat Burnell enough to make sure he could still talk. Ferda pointed out that this would be a problem. Burnell was already lying, severely injured on the ground. Ferda explained that he did not need Burnell's mouth. What he needed was his brain. He then offered to pay Burnell's entire debt himself. The boss revealed that the total, including interest, came to 72 gold coins and doubted Ferda actually had that much. Ferda confidently placed a bag of gleaming gold coins on the ground and assured him that the amount was more than enough. The loan shark stared at the money in shock. The boss looked at Burnell and smirked, realizing how lucky he was to have someone this wealthy backing him. With the payment ready, he declared Burnell's debt cleared. However, just as he reached for the coins, Ruri suddenly grabbed his hand. Ferda reminded him that their deal was not finished and questioned where he thought he was putting his hands. The boss groaned in pain and accused Ferda of changing the agreement. Ferda reminded him that he had specifically said he wanted Burnell's brain. After seeing how badly Burnell had been beaten, however, he doubted the man's brain would still function properly. He argued that, if the loan sharks damaged the merchandise, they should pay compensation. Burnell could only sit nearby in confusion. The boss was stunned by Ferda's reasoning and reminded him that Burnell was a person, not merchandise. He desperately demanded that Ruri release his hand, shocked that a young woman could possess such strength. Ruri eventually let go, leaving his wrist in severe pain. Ferda told Ruri he was counting on her. She calmly replied that it seemed she would not even need to do much. Ruri released her mana, instantly filling the area with such oppressive pressure that the loan sharks could barely move. The boss wondered whether the terrifying power was some kind of magic. Ferda then gave them two choices: pay compensation for brutally beating Burnell, or receive the same treatment themselves. He reminded them that loan sharks could not afford to lose even a single coin, so he assumed they would choose the second option. All of them would receive a proper beating to settle their debt. Ruri prepared herself, and the moment the boss saw her, terror took over. She proceeded to beat the loan sharks one after another until their screams echoed throughout the area. Eventually, they were completely beaten and fled. Once they were gone, Burnell sincerely thanked Ferda and Ruri for saving him. He admitted that he had no idea how he could ever repay them. He introduced himself as Burnell Mark, also known as the Messy Scholar, and asked for Ferda's name. Ferda introduced himself as Ferda Valdrova. The moment Burnell heard the name, he was stunned. He immediately knelt, realizing that Ferda was the Grand Duke's husband, and apologized for failing to recognize him. Ferda calmly explained that there was no reason to apologize since Burnell had no way of knowing. He then revealed the real reason he had come. He had learned about Burnell's research. Burnell could hardly believe someone was genuinely interested in his work. Ferda explained that he knew Burnell was researching ways to utilize monster corpses. The Far East had an endless supply of monsters, making it the perfect place to continue such research. He invited Burnell to Castle Valdrova and promised complete support without restricting his research. All necessary materials, funding, and facilities would be provided. Burnell was overwhelmed with excitement. Watching his reaction, Ruri quietly wondered whether the man was actually sane. After allowing Burnell to enjoy the offer, Ferda revealed its condition. In exchange for complete support, Burnell would have to develop weapons through his research. The happiness immediately disappeared from Burnell's face. He refused, believing that weapons only take lives and destroy peace. More than anything, he wanted the land to remain peaceful. Ferda acknowledged that Burnell genuinely valued peace. However, he shifted the conversation toward the monsters Burnell used for his research and began explaining the harsh realities surrounding them. Ferda explains that a single monster in the Far East can kill countless people. Burnell listens in shock as Ferda continues. Every 3 days, the Grand Duchess personally travels to the front lines where colossal monsters gather. These creatures possess enough power to erase an entire city like Asclea in an instant. Each time Valdrova fights them, she risks her own life while protecting people who remain unaware of the danger surrounding them. Ferda explains that humanity lives peacefully because of her sacrifices. That is why he needs someone capable of developing powerful weapons to help defeat these monsters and reduce the burden on the Grand Duchess. This is the true reason he wants Burnell. He wants the scholar everyone mocks to become the chief researcher of Castle Valdrova. Ferda presents Burnell with an official appointment letter, leaving him speechless. Even then, Burnell hesitates. He struggles with the idea of creating weapons with his own hands. Ferda already knows how his story will unfold. Burnell Mark, later known as the Messy Scholar, will become a brilliant pioneer who ushers in the age of magical engineering. Eventually, he will become a man willing to wage war in order to protect peace. Meanwhile, Ferda and Ruri leave in their carriage. Ruri admits that they never received a definite answer from Burnell. Ferda is unconcerned and believes Burnell will come once he has had enough time to think. He then notices that Ruri is carrying a large collection of candies and sweets. Ferda remarks that she seems to have developed quite a taste for human snacks. Ruri insists she is only satisfying her hunger because they still have a long journey ahead. She then asks who their next target is. Ferda answers that they are looking for a member of the Red-Eye tribe. The Red-Eye tribe possesses eyes capable of dispelling magic circles, making them the natural enemies of wizards. Because of this ability, they were persecuted until the race was believed to have gone extinct. Ruri is surprised to learn that someone from the supposedly extinct bloodline still survives. Although such a person could be extremely valuable, she wonders how they will find someone deliberately hiding their identity. Ferda asks whether they have enough travel funds remaining. Ruri assures him that they have enough to fill an entire cart. That is sufficient for their next destination, Hallam. Ruri immediately becomes concerned when she hears the name. Hallam is infamous as a city of corruption and entertainment. Ferda calmly confirms it, explaining that their target is a gambler. Soon afterward, they arrive at a casino in Hallam, where crowds surround the gambling tables amid constant noise and excitement. Ferda and Ruri enter as several people discuss a massive bet, wondering whether someone has wagered an entire fortune, or even an amount comparable to a territory's budget. Among the gamblers is their target, Jed Swallow. Ruri quietly points out that Jed does not have red eyes. Ferda confirms that he is still the person they are looking for. A casino worker recognizes them and asks whether they have come looking for Jed, welcoming them as new challengers. Jed sits comfortably at the table, appearing completely carefree. After the round ends, he casually acknowledges Ferda's victory. A young woman beside him asks whether he intends to take the game seriously. Jed responds playfully, suggesting that perhaps her encouragement could give him some extra luck. Ferda watches him carefully. He realizes that Jed barely cares about gambling. His real goal is to charm the noble woman beside him. With exceptional looks, eloquence, and sleight of hand, Jed has built himself a reputation among high society, while secretly keeping an escape route ready whenever danger appears. Ferda decides it is time to close that escape route. After another round, Jed casually jokes about enjoying himself and suggests they play again sometime. Ferda looks at his cards and calmly says there will be no next time because he would not want the woman behind him to start thinking of him as a gambler. Jed is surprised and asks why Ferda came to the casino in the first place. Ferda answers directly. He is looking for Amelia. The moment Jed hears the name, his carefree expression disappears. Anger replaces his smile as he demands to know what Ferda wants with her. Before he can finish, Ferda announces that he is going all in and places his entire pot on the table. The casino erupts with excitement. Everyone is shocked that the newcomer has risked his entire fortune against Jed. Jed realizes he has no choice but to accept. The cards are revealed. Jed has a straight flush. He wins the round. Afterward, Jed asks Ferda and Ruri to follow him somewhere private because they clearly have much to discuss. In another room, Jed pours himself a drink and demands to know how Ferda learned about Amelia. His anger rises as he asks whether Ferda is working with the people who took his sister. Ferda immediately realizes that Jed's brown eyes were only a disguise. He explains that he has nothing to do with those men. Ferda has already understood Jed's true situation. The carefree gambler and plaything of noble women is merely a facade. His extraordinary sleight of hand could bankrupt the entire casino, Yet he deliberately entertains nobles for cheap rewards because he is using their connections to search for his missing younger sister Amelia. Ferda also understands what likely happened to the Swallow siblings. As members of the Red-Eye tribe, they suffered persecution from wizards seeking to eradicate their kind and factions hoping to exploit their abilities. After losing Amelia, Jed hid his identity and entered high society hoping to find her through influential nobles. But to nobles concerned with status and reputation, he is merely entertainment. No matter how much money he earns, those connections will never give him what he needs. Frustrated, Jed grabs his head and admits that he still has not found his sister and has now been exposed by Ferda. Ferda offers him a way out. He introduces himself as Ferda Dolce Rota, and, as Valdrova's future husband, offers Jed a position as his attendant. Jed is stunned that Ferda wants to employ him, especially knowing he is a Red-Eye and would effectively become the servant of a red dragon. Ferda confirms the offer. When Jed remains skeptical, Ferda shows him the official appointment letter and explains that accepting the position will give him access to high society and a genuine opportunity to find Amelia. Jed considers the offer carefully. The opportunity is too valuable to ignore, but he has conditions. He wants a proper salary and refuses to remain if Ferda ever develops ulterior motives regarding his abilities. Ferda accepts both conditions and adds one of his own. Their contract will last only until Jed finds his sister. After that, Jed will be completely free to stay or leave. Jed is stunned. He cannot believe Ferda intends to let him walk away instead of enslaving or selling him. Ferda calmly explains that he has no interest in buying or selling people. Once the contract ends, Jed will be free. Still incredulous, Jed points out that Ferda is a wizard and asks whether he is not afraid of having a Red-Eye tribe member walking openly beside him, considering they are natural enemies. Ferda smiles at Jed's concern and tells him that a wizard who fears the Red-Eye tribe simply because their magic can dispel magic circles is a failure. He has no intention of forcing Jed to stay. Internally, Ferda knows that even if he tried, catching Jed would be nearly impossible, since he will eventually become a master thief capable of escaping notorious prisons repeatedly. Jed takes another drink and admits that Ferda is an unusual noble. Accepting the offer to become his attendant, he asks what his first assignment will be. Ferda immediately tells him to seduce a woman and bring her back. Jed nearly spits out his drink in shock. Ferda simply explains that with Jed's skills, bringing in a woman who lives alone should be easy. Their destination turns out to be a lone house surrounded by darkness. Jed immediately realizes they are visiting a witch. He accepts the mission but asks about his payment. Ferda reminds him that the money he won at the casino is already his fee. Jed protests that he earned that money himself and wants separate payment. Ruri angrily reminds him that it is his fee. Sensing that arguing further is dangerous, Jed quickly gives in and declares that the first request is on the house. Confidently, he adds that seduction happens to be his specialty before entering the witch's house. Ruri watches him disappear inside and worries that he may come out as a corpse. Ferda remains calm, confident that he gave Jed a task suited to his abilities. Ruri disagrees, explaining that the Phileas witches are red circle witches born from hatred and desire. Bound together by a curse, they rely only on each other and harbor a deep hatred toward men. Ferda still shows no concern. He explains that Echidna has been branded a heretic even among the Phileas witches. Her expulsion is precisely why they can recruit her. Before Ruri can ask for the reason, Jed's voice comes from inside. He says that the mission ended surprisingly quickly and that the woman is willing to do anything simply because she likes his appearance. The woman then appears. Her name is Echidna Phileas, a heretic of the Phileas witches. Her crime is being obsessively attracted to handsome faces. The moment she sees Ferda, Jed, and Ruri, she becomes delighted by the handsome men and beautiful girls standing before her. Ferda immediately gets to the point. He asks about the special golem Echidna is secretly creating. Her expression changes as she demands to know how he learned about it. Ferda simply asks her to show it to them. Echidna refuses, explaining that the golem is an absolute secret. Seeing that she has no intention of revealing it, Ferda calmly decides there is nothing left to discuss and prepares to leave. But as Ferda and the others turn to leave, Echidna suddenly panics at the thought of losing such handsome guests. She quickly stops them and agrees to show them her secret creation. She rushes to a cupboard, pulls out a wooden figure, and proudly presents her unfinished golem. Everyone falls silent, especially after noticing the unusually detailed face. Jed finally comments on how much effort she put into its appearance. Echidna explains that she is creating her own ultimate beauty. As she points toward the golem, it suddenly moves. Ruri asks what it did, and Echidna explains that the golem automatically reads her mood and chooses an appropriate tea. Moments later, it approaches her with a cup of Darjeeling tea, correctly judging that she is in a good mood. Ruri is stunned. A golem capable of reading its master's emotions and acting independently should not possess such advanced learning ability. She turns to Ferda and realizes that Echidna is far more than an ordinary golem maker. Ferda reveals that Echidna is a rune maker, one of fewer than 10 such artisans on the entire continent. Runes are the foundation of magic circles. While ordinary wizards combine existing runes to cast spells, rune makers can create entirely new runes suited to their needs. Echidna's true talent is therefore not simply making golems, but creating new forms of magic through rune creation. Curious about how she began making golems, Ruri asks. Echidna casually explains that she awakened her red circle from her desire for handsome men. She wanted a boyfriend but could never find one, while her fellow witches preferred turning men into grotesque taxidermy or puppets. Since that was too unpleasant for her, she used runes to create her own boyfriend instead. Ferda ignores the unnecessary details and focuses on what truly matters. Even he could not create new runes as an archmage, making Echidna's talent extraordinarily valuable. He immediately presents her with an appointment letter and offers her a position as chief researcher in the Grand Duchess's territory. She happily accepts. Ferda reflects that with Echidna and Brunel recruited, he now has the researchers he needs. Brunel's magical engineering and Echidna's golem technology could eventually give humanity a way to drive the monsters away from the Far East. As they leave the forest, Jed happily says goodbye to the gloomy place. Ferda then asks Echidna whether she has packed everything. She proudly explains that she stored all her belongings using subspace magic. Ferda realizes that this means Echidna is at least a fifth circle witch. Her obsession with handsome men is clearly extreme, so he decides to prepare a countermeasure for her until he understands her better. Ferda then tells Jed and Echidna to return to Valdrova's castle without him. He plans to remain nearby and return the following day. Jed suggests taking an attendant with him, but Ferda refuses, saying he will be back tomorrow. Echidna suddenly asks whether there are any other handsome men at the Grand Duchess's castle. Ferda casually points out that Jed will be there. Echidna immediately bursts into excited laughter, while Jed quickly changes his mind and asks Ferda to take him along. The next morning, Ferda once again reviews his list. This time the final name catches Ruri's attention, Helios Phobetus. Ruri is pleased to finally recognize someone on the list. Helios Phobetus, the Sage of Water, is renowned for his wisdom and ability to perceive the essence of things. He has rejected lucrative positions from the Argent Empire and remains unaffiliated, living as an ascetic wizard. Ruri explains that someone like Helios cannot be persuaded by money or power and asks how Ferda plans to win him over. Ferda clarifies that she has misunderstood. He has no interest in recruiting the Sage of Water. Helios is merely connected to the person he actually seeks. Ferda then reveals the truth. The person he is looking for doesn't have a name.